what do you find is your most rewarding game or games?
Yes. So what games give you the most rewarding experiences? And so it's a very interesting topic that we haven't had to have a think about because I'd like you to start us off, Joel, because I mean I've got my own opinion, but I think all three of us have got similar, like a little varying answers.
Well,
here.
there's different ways you can go at it. I personally picked a individual game that I tend to find every time it does come to my table, whether we have new players who haven't played games very much or people who've played games a lot. This game tends to work with most people, and that might just be our group. But I've actually picked a social deduction game, which is One Night Ultimate Werewolf. If you haven't played this before.
I have played it.
I have not.
You have not played this
It's
before.
right there.
It's on the shelf. I played a bunch of Werewolf, and I've heard a lot about this.
I will absolutely show this to you. Now, the main premise of the game is it sort of goes in two stages. Everybody's going to get a card with a character on it, and that's secret to you. And you will see your character. It'll go back in the middle.
Oh, I got land.
Sorry. I'm the seed.
Similar to most social deduction games, you'll either be a good player, the villagers, or you will be the werewolf. And what's going to happen in this game is that although the first stage you know what character you started as, you may no longer be that character anymore, and you won't get to look at your new card again.
Oh, okay.
So this game essentially goes in two stages. Firstly, everyone will mix some stuff up. You need to work out what team you're on, firstly, and then second from that, we then need to find the werewolf and execute them.
This is also a timed game. It's played under a time pressure, by the way.
Oh,
so,
love
for
it.
example,
Love it. A social game with time pressure
we
too.
we generally find about 10 minutes is good, unless you've got a massive group, maybe do a little bit more.
We do it 8 minutes.
So 10 minutes is the whole game.
Very quick.
Yeah, so the reason why it's called One Night Werewolf is because you only play one night, which is that you get to look at your card, you shut your eyes, you press go on the app, so you have to play with a phone app, and then it walks you through the steps of the first night.
Cool.
Now, the way that, exactly like Werewolf and Blood on the Clock Tower, is the demon, the werewolf, the werewolf, and we'll get 3 bluffs in the center. Now, the werewolf will at some point be able to look potentially at those bluffs in the center, and we'll be able to then figure out, okay, this is who I can be. The werewolf in this game, though, does not know who their minions are. Doesn't know. The minions know who the werewolf is, but they have no clue who the minions are.
And there is some special ability stuff. Sometimes, depending on your player count, you might get 2 werewolves. If they wake up, they will know each other, but you don't know if you're still a werewolf anymore. So you know who started, and there's this very big sort of cat and mouse where you want to give information out, because if you're on the village team, we need to work out where the werewolves are. But if you give too much information out and then find out you are a werewolf now you're a bit screwed.
You also have you've got the sage, they get to look at, so the way that this game works is very similar so the way that the sage works is at the end of the game, if the good team wins, the evil team get 1 shot to say, I think you're the sage. And if they're correct, the evil team wins, right? So you can't be too obvious because you know who the demon is, the werewolf, sorry, but you cannot give that information away. So you're trying to be coy about it, but also not doing that. But then you've also got like roles such as there's the stonemasons, which are essentially the evil twins from Blood on the Clock Tower. So the stonemasons know who each other are, but that also could potentially be a bluff. Like, I'm a stonemason. Yep, I'm a stonemason.
And
as
are
well.
are stonemasons the evil team?
No, they're a good team. They're a good team.
Yeah.
You've got roles like the drunk.
We can kind of vouch for each other.
So,
but then somebody else might say they were as well, and it's
I see.
So you've got the drunk. The drunk actually has to then take one of their cards randomly from the center and put it in front of them and change it.
Okay.
You've got the
after the demon sees it.
After the there's a whole,
it depends on what you get. There's lots of but what I liked about it, and what I find rewarding is, like, for one, you can pick the really simple. It's got a starter set of abilities. It says use these characters first if it's your first game, right? And it's really easy. Most of the people just do basic things like, let's just swap your card and my card, and I get to see the new one. So I know who I am now, and it's nice and simple. The game only goes for 10 minutes, so they don't need a massive time investment of an hour or, I'm not really into games, I don't know if this is for me. Well, that's cool. It's 10 minutes for the first game. We might even make it 5 minutes, set the timer smaller. And if you don't like it, we can move on. But this is typically the game that I find that we say 10 minutes is all you need to invest. It's currently 8 o'clock, and we leave at midnight having played about 25 rounds of it. Perfect. And it's just taken over the night sort of
thing. So now that I've got a bit of a baseline of what this game is, what are some of the moments that have really elevated this game for you?
So the thing that I really like about this game is too, the puzzle of it. So it's really good, almost like a murder mystery if you ever watch those old crime shows and you finally find out who the killer was. As the game unfolds, you're like, oh, you've switched them to here, thanks for revealing it. And I've actually switched them with them, so he's the werewolf now. And all these things come out along the way.
Oh, cool.
And then at the end of the game, you get the big reveal, and there's this big, the game went for 10 minutes, and then you talk about it for 20, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
there's,
that's awesome.
oh man, no,
That
you didn't
sounds
know,
really
but what
fun.
I was saying before, I was actually lying, and this is what I was trying to do. And then,
And is there much of an overhead to actually teach this game to people?
no, so typically,
It's about a 10 minutes each. You just need everyone to know what the roles are.
Sure.
What they do.
typically what we would do for a teacher is I would give everyone your role, and then I'd read out what the roles do, and you just listen for yours,
Okay.
and then we can start the game.
Sure.
You don't need to know all of them, just listen for yours. Good to go.
The app is very good as well. So when you're asleep, it'll be like, troublemaker, open your
I imagine
eyes.
just like where words.
Yeah,
and
exactly
stuff,
right.
yeah.
Open your eyes and change 2 players' cards.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shut troublemaker. Shut your eyes. So
You
it's
can-
like very, very easy to
Yeah,
understand.
But
you
can
can
you-
play it without the app, and
Okay.
it gives you there's a script that you can read off, and is if you add this player in, put them in at slot 7, and that's
Sure.
when you read off. But the app honestly does such a good
Yeah.
job. It's
Yeah.
free. It's
One of my
yeah.
one of my favorite game experiences actually came from One Night Ultimate Werewolf, which is
Mhm.
there's a role called the Tanner, and the Tanner is the
love the
is the
Tanner.
character that's thrown in because they're on their own team, and the Tanner wants to die. So if you can die as the Tanner, you immediately win. No one else, and so you're the only winner.
The
of the game.
Tanner is one of my favorite characters because typically the game is played that nobody wants to know. Like if I'm the werewolf and I know I'm still the werewolf, I don't want anyone to find out. So you start getting a bit cagey with your information.
Yeah.
But the Tanner actually wants to be killed. So you almost play like I am a werewolf, and I don't want to say because and it adds a really good depth to the game.
My experience was basically I caught out my cousin Matt because we were playing it with a group of like 9 of us, and they were and him and his sister were being a bit silly, and they went, it's like, if you're a werewolf, put your hand in the air, and I instantly just did a quick like, oh crap, no, and they caught it, and they were like, and like for that moment, I'm like, no, sorry, no, that was an accident, and then they were convinced, and they got me, and I immediately won the game. I'm like, yes!
Oh, beautiful. That's pretty smart.
Yeah.
So, what is 1 week Ultimate Werewolf? Is that a legacy variant?
It's a game that you play over like 7 nights.
It essentially turns
that's
it
not
into
too
closer
bad.
to
It's
Clock Out.
only 7 minutes,
It's
right?
Cluedo it's Cluedo kind of meets One Night Ultimate Werewolf. One Werewolf is kind of how I
interesting. Okay.
it's
Yeah.
interesting like that.
I haven't played the week one, but yeah.
Look, I took this question from a little bit of a different standpoint because for me, when I heard, what's my favorite, what gives me the most rewarding experiences, my mind immediately went not to a game specific, but to a type of game, which is my most rewarding experiences from board gaming comes from finding a plan and executing the plan, and
That's a
then
good
and getting it done. Now that doesn't mean that I pre-move 40 moves in chess and I do that. It could be like my plan was this, and then a spanner was thrown in the works, and I was able to
Overcome adversity
and get to it. And so like those moments in Brass, why I love it, in Barrage, even moments like the Tanner story that was a very quick wit where I was like, my mind immediately knew what my plan was. As soon as they said, I've got to now pretend that I've been caught in the lie, and I did that. And so for me, the most rewarding experiences I get out of board gaming are when, like, don't get me wrong, like I love hand-to-hand wombat, but that's just silly fun. But it's not the most rewarding game. The most rewarding games I've had are games of Twilight Imperium, where you come out the back and you go, I had a plan, and I've been planning this for 3 hours, and I was able to execute it and win.
My experience is usually I have a plan. I tried doing it for 8 hours. It didn't work.
But even then, to come back and talk about it, like for me, that's and that's why I keep coming back. Like this is something that also video games do provide as well. The idea of like, especially multiplayer games and when you're doing competitive things, but like with board games, because we normally all start from the same base, the same foundation of like, okay, we all have these things. Go now, we have the game in front of us. I really find that when I have that battle of wits with you guys and all the other people out there, it's the reason why I really do love heavy games at the same point in time. It's like, yes, they're heavy and they can be hard to learn, but when I come out the other end of it having thought, I really wanted to do blank, and I was able to do that, and then I found a really cool combo or a really cool thing. That to me is what I feel really rewarded by.
Do you think it's it's a personal accomplishment thing? It's like it's nice that you're set to do something, you stuck to it, committed, and now you've got it done. It doesn't always pay off.
Well, I think a little bit, and this maybe speaks a little bit to my temperament or my little psyche being a little sidestep, which is that I'm actually a bit of a run. Like I like running. And I've set myself a personal goal of doing the marathon next year, which you guys know, but this is what I'm trying to do, my first ever marathon at 36, right? But the idea is that it says a lot about the saying, which is that that's a sport that I really enjoy, and it doesn't affect anyone else. It's just me. I'm just setting myself a goal and trying to achieve that goal by putting work into it. And it's one of the reasons why I play our friend James so often, which is I know he's much better at heavier games than I do. He has a much better intricate understanding of the mechanics. He understands how they interplay and can actually do the calculations.
He can see the puzzle.
He can see a lot better than I can. But there are games where I can do things and I know I'm either A, throwing a spanner in the works, or B, I'm actually going head to head with him, and you and Damo for that matter.
And you're not purposely throwing the game. You're trying to win.
No,
it.
yeah. And there are some
creating new unique situations in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. No, when I say throwing a spanner in the works, is that I would do something that he probably wasn't expecting, right?
Yeah.
But I'm at my core trying to do that same thing that he to do better, and that's why I love those games. Because when I come out of a game of like Barrage or Brass, Twilight, Gaia Project, these bigger, heavier games, and I can see something, I come out and go, oh, that was super cool. I'm glad that I did that. And then I can stop thinking about what I can do better next time. And, games even like Seven Wonders Duel, like I was super heavy games, but Seven Wonders Duel are like that too.
That's very thinky. What's like the word mentally?
Yeah, mentally challenging. Yeah. Like, but it's like where you do that thing where like, well, if I take this, I think Ralph will take that, which will allow me to get this, which should get me that. And if I can see that plan execute, I'm like, great, that's for me. But what about you, Ralph? I mean, do you have a game? Do you have a specific feeling?
I listen to many different types of music. I play many different types of a board game.
Yeah.
But I found personally what I enjoy is not necessarily I enjoy every type of game. I really enjoy Euro games and the heavy thinky ones too. But
Ameritrash,
but me personally, I think I'm more of an events guy. And I'm not thinking about Clock Tower. I'm just thinking about your question, Joel, about
the most rewarding experience.
The most rewarding experience is something that's a bit laid back, something you can have a drink. I call those the beer and pretzel games, right? Where you can have beer and a pretzel and still enjoy a game. And it's an afternoon. It's a good 4-hour affair.
Yeah.
So for me, I want to bring up a game called Nemesis. Have you heard of this one?
I've heard of, seen, not played.
Yeah. So
love it.
This one is essentially Aliens, the movie, but in a board game. And they called it Nemesis to avoid copyright, but
I reckon they tried to get Alien, but
there was already an Alien board game.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
so that's the other confusing thing.
Yeah,
it's how old is that game as well? Is that?
I think it's like 7 or 8 years old now. Nemesis.
Yeah, okay.
But I'm just talking about the base game. There's like Nemesis Aftermath and things like that. But just the normal one, the regular one, is the best in my opinion.
Yeah.
So essentially, everyone's a character, and you have a secret objective, whether you need to survive the spacecraft, because the spacecraft has to get to Earth. The whole board is a spacecraft.
Yeah.
Has to get to Earth, but you have to survive, but also make sure player number 3 dies. And you have no way to kill player number 3. But hey, this is a true story. I had to make sure that I survived, but I had to kill player 2.
Okay.
And player 2, mechanic happened where the alien was in a room with him. It just spawned in a room with him, and he was fully healed, had ways to get out, had tricks up his arsenal. It's a semi-co-op game because people have objectives where you need other players to survive as well as you.
Yeah.
So you help each other out, and you never really know who's on your team. I wasn't on this player's team.
How did he know?
I was in the control room and he was in the airlock with the alien, so I sealed the door so he couldn't get out until I can get to the room that ejects the airlock, and I sucked him and the alien out. And then on my very next turn, I was in the control room again trying to look at the engines to see if they were all operational, because there's mechanics where they can break and other players can go into a specific engine out of the 3 and break them. And I wanted to make sure they were working so I can make it back to Earth and survive. If not, I die by a certain clock timer.
Yeah.
And they were all good. So I tried to get out and realized I made too much noise in the engine room, and I spawned the big baddie, the big queen bee there, and that killed me after a few rounds. I almost survived it. But then other players realized this ship is already on fire. We have so many rooms malfunctioning. We're just going to try and eject out of here. And there's just, that game creates so many amazing stories where you can sit back
with those moments, right?
Yeah, it's those cinematic moments where you can sit down with a beer and a pretzel and enjoy that game. I call many games beer and pretzel games. Zombicide is another great one.
Yeah.
It's done its time, but I'll tell you what, it creates those cinematic moments when you set up the board in a little scenario.
I think you need to have beer and pretzels for Nemesis as well, because the 2 times that I've played it, it can be one of those games that is super polarizing, because it can be those games where you get knocked out. Yeah, it's like, well, because you have a moment, like if you're player 2, you can be like, yeah, I'm feeling really good, I'm healed. And then Ralph goes, haha, sucker, locks you in and then you die and now you're
Not just that,
yeah.
like I can throw a decoy so the alien runs into your room.
Absolutely.
And things like that.
There's all this stuff that goes
There's so many cool mechanics behind it, and every room has different mechanics, different computers you can use, and you get different weapons, but ammo's hard to find. You can craft stuff, and like there's just really cool video game based mechanics in a board game.
Yeah.
And because it's not overbearing in terms of mechanic wise, but there are a lot of rules.
Yeah.
So there's a huge rules reference, but after you play a game or two, it is a real chill game that creates those crazy stories.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. Well, that was our discussion topic. We have the man who loves his beer and pretzels.
Love them.
We have me who likes pre-planning and executing a plan. What's the meme? It's like,
I like controlled chaos.
Yeah, the meme feels like it's from the show where you prepare the plan, you execute the plan, you prepare for the plan to go off the rails, you disregard the plan entirely, right?
That's right.
And then we also have Joel, which is, I love your story about talking about One Night Ultimate Wealth, because I think that really does say a lot about the fact that you love having those moments where you get to talk after the game. It's like, that's also part of the reason why you love Buying the Clock Tower, because you talk about like when you were doing that.
I mean, how many times have we spent another hour after Clock Tower's finished talking in the car park outside the venue?
Yeah, Ash really surprised me. She was the Fangoo in our last game, and I did not see that coming.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, so with that, we're going to bring it to the end of our podcast number 62. Once again, I would like to welcome you, Joel, to the official podcast.
Glad to be on board.
It's lovely to have you here. And once again, I want to make sure that you, watching this podcast, go and buy your tickets for Sydney's Family Game Day on the 11th of January 2025.
It's got a good ring to it.
Yeah, we are actually going to have, by the time that you are seeing this, we will have our the website up, which is going to be sydneysfamilygameday.com.au or .com, either one of those. Check them out. They'll take you straight to the tickets page. And maybe we'll get both of them actually, because why not? We can see.
Sounds good to me.
We'll see how that goes. Make sure you go and buy your tickets. Go and check out our YouTube page, which is youtube.com/@BGGateway. Go to our Facebook page, because that is where we'll be posting most of the updates for the event coming up to it. And whilst you're at it as well, make sure you'll find the link there to join. You can join our mailing list, which will also be sent out updates through that as well. So when you purchase a